Hi, you guys. Just checking in on you today, and I hope you're doing all right. Um, I'll tell you right now that I'm feeling your pain on Flipgrid. I get it now, what you were saying about how you have to do like 20 takes to just get your one video that you're happy with. So I'm going through a little bit of that right now too. So I get it. We're still going to do Flipgrids, but I feel your pain. I understand what you guys are talking about. But I hope you're doing okay, and I'm definitely thinking about you. I hope you're doing all right being inside. I hope you are inside, unless you go out for a walk in nature, which is also really healthy, or if you go out for a walk with your family or something. But in the meantime, I know it's difficult to stay in, but we definitely all have to do our part. And we always have poems and stories, right? So we'll start with that today. So let's go to our inspiration for today. It's a poem. And here we are. It's called Human Family by Maya Angelou. She was an American poet and just a famous author and just a wonderful writer. She's famous for a book called I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. And it's a memoir, and it would be a great book actually for our next book clubs that we just started last week. But if you're still looking for a book, you might want to think about hers. But the poem I want to share with you today is called Human Family. So I'll read it to you. Human family. I note the obvious differences in the human family. Some of us are serious, some thrive on comedy. Some declare their lives are lived in true profundity, and others claim they really live the real reality. The variety of our skin tones can confuse, bemuse, delight. Brown and pink and beige and purple, tan and blue and white. I've sailed upon the 7 seas and stopped in every land. I've seen the wonders of the world, not yet one common man. I know 10,000 women called Jane and Mary Jane, but I've not seen any two who really were the same. Mirror twins are different, although their features jibe, and lovers think quite different thoughts while lying side by side. We love and lose in China, we weep on England's moors, and laugh and moan in Guinea, and thrive on Spanish shores. We seek success in Finland, are born and die in Maine. In minor ways we differ, in major we're the same. I note the obvious differences between each sort and type, but we are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike. We are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike. We are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike. That's just a beautiful poem, and I feel like that repetition at the end obviously really drives it home. And I also feel like it's kind of where we are right now as a world, all suffering through this together and all, having to pull together and pull our resources together to solve the problem. So there's a little food for thought. If you want to really give yourself a treat, Google Maya Angelou herself reading this poem. It is amazing. She had an unbelievable voice, and when you heard her read her own work, it was really wonderful. She actually did a poetry reading at Marywood one year, probably about at least 20 years ago, probably a little bit more than that even. So that's our poem for today. We're going to go to Tuesdays with Morrie. So if you've been keeping up with that, we're going to pick up where we left off. If you haven't, go back to the earlier videos and then catch up, listen to the story of Tuesdays with Morrie. It's just really a wonderful kind of tale. So let me get to our book. So here we are back with Tuesdays with Morrie, and this is right where we left off yesterday. It is our first class together in the spring of 1976. I enter Morrie's large office and notice the seemingly countless books that line the wall, shelf after shelf. Books on sociology, philosophy, religion, psychology. There is a large rug on the hardwood floor and a window that looks out on the campus walk. Only a dozen or so students are there, fumbling with notebooks and syllabi. Most of them wear jeans and earth shoes and plaid flannel shirts. I tell myself it will not be easy to cut a class this small. Maybe I shouldn't take it. Mitchell? Morrie says, reading from the attendance list. I raise a hand. Do you prefer Mitch, or is Mitchell better? I have never been asked this by a teacher. I do a double take at this guy in his yellow turtleneck and green corduroy pants, the silver hair that falls on his forehead. He is smiling. Mitch, I say. Mitch is what my friends called me. Well, Mitch it is then, Morrie says, as if closing a deal. And Mitch? Yes? I hope that one day you will think of me as your friend. The orientation. As I turned the rental car onto Morrie's Street in West Newton, a quiet suburb of Boston, I had a cup of coffee in one hand and a cellular phone between my ear and shoulder. I was talking to a TV producer about a piece we were doing. My eyes jumped from the digital clock. My return flight was in a few hours, to the mailbox numbers on the tree-lined suburban street. The car radio was on, the all-news station. This was how I operated, 5 things at once. Roll back the tape, I said to the producer. Let me hear that part again. Okay, he said, it's going to take a second. Suddenly, I was upon the house. I pushed the brakes, spilling coffee in my lap. As the car stopped, I caught a glimpse of a large Japanese maple tree and 3 figures sitting near it in the driveway, a young man and a middle-aged woman flanking a small old man in a wheelchair. Morrie. At the sight of my old professor, I froze. Hello? The producer said in my ear. Did I lose you? I had not seen him in 16 years. His hair was thinner, nearly white, and his face was gaunt. I suddenly felt unprepared for this reunion. For one thing, I was stuck on the phone, and I had hoped that he hadn't noticed my arrival, so that I could drive around the block a few more times, finish my business, get mentally ready. But Morrie, this new withered version of a man I had once known so well, was smiling at the car, hands folded in his lap, waiting for me to emerge. Hey, the producer said again, are you there? For all the time we'd spent together, for all the kindness and patience Morrie had shown me when I was young, I should have dropped the phone and jumped from the car, run and held him and kissed him hello. Instead, I killed the engine and sunk down off the seat as if I were looking for something. Yeah, I'm here, I whispered, and continued my conversation with the TV producer until we were finished. I did what I had become best at doing. I tended to my work, even while my dying professor waited on his front lawn. I'm not proud of this, but that is what I did. Now, 5 minutes later, Morrie was hugging me, his thinning hair rubbing against my cheek. I had told him I was searching for my keys. That's what had taken me so long in the car, and I squeezed him tighter as if I could crush my little lie. Although the spring sunshine was warm, he wore a windbreaker and his legs were covered by a blanket. He smelled faintly sour, the way people on medication sometimes do. With his face pressed close to mine, I could hear his labored breathing in my ear. My old friend, he whispered, you've come back at last. He rocked against me, not letting go, his hands reaching up for my elbows as I bent over him. I was surprised at such affection after all these years, but then, in the stone walls I had built between my present and my past, I had forgotten how close we once were. I remembered graduation day, the briefcase, his tears at my departure, and I swallowed because I knew deep down that I was no longer the good, gift-bearing student he remembered. I only hoped that for the next few hours I could fool him. Inside the house, We sat at a walnut dining room table near a window that looked out on the neighbor's house. Morrie fussed with his wheelchair, trying to get comfortable. As was his custom, he wanted to feed me, and I said all right. One of the helpers, a stout Italian woman named Connie, cut up bread and tomatoes and brought containers of chicken salad, hummus, and tabbouleh. She also brought some pills. Morrie looked at them and sighed. His eyes were more sunken than I remembered them, and his cheekbones more pronounced. This gave him a harsher, older look, until he smiled, of course, and the sagging cheeks gathered up like curtains. "Mitch," he said softly, "you know that I'm dying." I knew. All right, then. Morrie swallowed the pills, put down the paper cup, inhaled deeply, then let it out. "Shall I tell you what it's like?" "What it's like? To die?" "Yes," he said. Although I was unaware of it, our last class had just begun. It is my freshman year. Morrie is older than most of the teachers, and I am younger than most of the students, having left high school a year early. To compensate for my youth on campus, I wear old gray sweatshirts and box in a local gym and walk around with an unlit cigarette in my mouth, even though I do not smoke. I drive a beat-up Mercury Cougar with the windows down and the music up. I seek my identity in toughness, but it is Morrie's softness that draws me, and because he does not look at me as a kid trying to be something more than I am, I relax. I finish that first course with him and enroll for another. He is an easy marker. He does not much care for grades. One year, they say, during the Vietnam War, Morrie gave all his male students A's to help them keep their student deferments. I begin to call Morrie Coach the way I used to address my high school track coach. Morrie likes the nickname. "Coach," he says. "All right, I'll be your coach, and you can be my player. You can play all the lovely parts of life that I'm too old for now." Sometimes we eat together in the cafeteria. Morrie, to my delight, is even more of a slob than I am. He talks instead of chewing, laughs with his mouth open, delivers a passionate thought through a mouthful of egg salad, the little yellow pieces spewing from his teeth. It cracks me up. The whole time I know him, I have two overwhelming desires: to hug him and to give him a napkin. The classroom. The sun beamed in through the dining room window, lighting up the hardwood floor. We had been talking there for nearly 2 hours. The phone rang yet again, and Morrie asked his helper, Connie, to get it. She had been jotting the callers' names in Morrie's small black appointment book. Friends, meditation teachers, a discussion group, someone who wanted to photograph him for a magazine. It was clear I was not the only one interested in visiting my old professor. The Nightline appearance had made him something of a celebrity, but I was impressed with, perhaps even a bit envious of, all the friends that Morrie seemed to have. I thought about the buddies that circled my orbit back in college. Where had they gone? "You know, Mitch, now that I'm dying, I've become much more interesting to people." "You were always interesting." "Huh," Morrie smiled. "You're kind." "No, I'm not," I thought. "Here's the thing," he said. "People see me as a bridge. I'm not as alive as I used to be, but I'm not yet dead. I'm sort of in between." He coughed, then regained his smile. "I'm on the last great journey here, and people want me to tell them what to pack." The phone rang again. "Morrie, can you talk?" Connie asked. "I'm visiting with my old pal now," he announced. "Let them call back." I cannot tell you why he received me so warmly. I was hardly the promising student who had left him 16 years earlier. Had it not been for Nightline, Morrie might have died without ever seeing me again. I had no good excuse for this, except the one that everyone these days seems to have. I had become too wrapped up in the siren song of my own life. I was busy. What happened to me? I asked myself. Morrie's high, smoky voice took me back to my university years, when I thought rich people were evil, a shirt and tie were prison clothes, and life without freedom to get up and go, motorcycle beneath you, breeze in your face, down the streets of Paris, into the mountains of Tibet, was not a good life at all. What happened to me? The 80s happened. The 90s happened. Death and sickness and getting fat and going bald happened. I traded lots of dreams for a bigger paycheck, and I never even realized I was doing it. Yet here was Morrie talking with the wonder of our college years, as if I'd simply been on a long vacation. Have you found someone to share your heart with? He asked. Are you giving to your community? Are you at peace with yourself? Are you trying to be as human as you can be? I squirmed, wanting to show I had been grappling deeply with such questions. What happened to me? I once promised myself I would never work for money, that I would join the Peace Corps, that I would live in beautiful, inspirational places. Instead, I had been in Detroit for 10 years now, at the same workplace, using the same bank, visiting the same barber. I was 37, more efficient than in college, tied to computers and modems and cell phones. I wrote articles about rich athletes who, for the most part, could not care less about people like me. I was no longer young for my peer group, nor did I walk around in gray sweatshirts with unlit cigarettes in my mouth. I did not have long discussions over egg salad sandwiches about the meaning of life. My days were full, yet I remained, much of the time, unsatisfied. What happened to me? Coach, I said suddenly, remembering the nickname. Morrie beamed. That's me. I'm still your coach. He laughed and resumed his eating, a meal he had started 40 minutes earlier. I watched him now, his hands working gingerly, as if he were learning to use them for the very first time. He could not press down hard with a knife. His fingers shook. Each bite was a struggle. He chewed the food finely before swallowing, and sometimes it slid out the sides of his lips so that he had to put down what he was holding to dab his face with a napkin. The skin from his wrist to his knuckles was dotted with age spots, and it was loose, like skin hanging from a chicken soup bone. For a while, we just ate like that. A sick old man, a healthy younger man, both absorbing the quiet of the room. I would say it was an embarrassed silence, but I seemed to be the only one embarrassed. Dying, Morrie suddenly said, is only one thing to be sad over, Mitch. Living unhappily is something else. So many of the people who come to visit me are unhappy. Why? Well, for one thing, the culture we have does not make people feel good about themselves. We're teaching the wrong things. And you have to be strong enough to say if the culture doesn't work, don't buy it. Create your own. Most people can't do it. They're more unhappy than me, even in my current condition. I may be dying, but I am surrounded by loving, caring souls. How many people can say that? I was astonished by his complete lack of self-pity. Morrie, who could no longer dance, swim, bathe, or walk. Morrie, who could no longer answer his own door, dry himself after a shower, or even roll over in bed. How could he be so accepting? I watched him struggle with his fork, picking at a piece of tomato, missing it the first 2 times. A pathetic scene, and yet I could not deny that sitting in his presence was almost magically serene, the same calm breeze that soothed me back in college. I shot a glance at my watch, force of habit. It was getting late, and I thought about changing my plane reservation home. Then Morrie did something that haunts me to this day. You know how I'm going to die? He said. I raised my eyebrows. I'm going to suffocate, yes. My lungs, because of my asthma, can't handle the disease. It's moving up my body, this ALS. It's already got my legs. Pretty soon it'll get my arms and hands, and when it hits my lungs, he shrugged his shoulders. I'm sunk. I had no idea what to say, so I said, well, you never know. Morrie closed his eyes. I know, Mitch. You mustn't be afraid of my dying. I've had a good life, and we all know it's going to happen. I maybe have 4 or 5 months. Come on, I said nervously. Nobody can say. I can, he said softly. There's even a little test a doctor showed me. A test? Inhale a few times. I did as he said. Now, once more, but this time when you exhale, count as many numbers as you can before you take another breath. I quickly exhaled the numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I reached 70 before my breath was gone. Good, Morrie said. You have healthy lungs. Now, watch what I do. He inhaled, then began his number count in a soft, wobbly voice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. He stopped, gasping for air. When the doctor first told me to do this, I could reach 23. Now it's 18. He closed his eyes, shook his head. My tank is almost empty. I tapped my thighs nervously. That was enough for one afternoon. Come back and see your old professor, Morrie said when I hugged him goodbye. I promised I would, and I tried not to think about the last time I promised this. All right, that's a good place to stop, you guys. So have a good rest of the day. Read your books, read other books, talk to each other on the phone and social media. And feel free to email me with any questions. A couple of you have already, but continue to do that if you have any thoughts or questions, or comment in Google Classroom. So have a great day, you guys. I'm thinking of you. Take care till tomorrow.